Welcome to the Spiritual Underground Podcast. This is Dan again, coming to you out here from the studios of DTM Enterprises, my wood shop in the backyard. I have a real special guest today. Been looking forward to hearing him. I've known him for a long time. I actually have known this guy before I knew him, because I heard in the group, one of the groups I was going to, they kept on referring to a guy, kept on referring to an Army Mark. And he was out of the country at the time, and I heard about his, they were reporting in that Mark was doing good. Mark could use some support, different kind of things, the normal kind of thing of checking in. And then at a certain point in time, he came back, and I finally got to meet him. I think after I was out again for a little bit, it was disappeared for a little while. And then got to come back and meet him. Let me hit these commercials real quick. First off, the music around the podcast is brought to you by Darren Frank. We'll keep on playing his stuff. We'll put a little teaser at the beginning, and then if you want to hear the entire song at the end of it, will be the entire song. I don't want to lead with that. spiritualunderground.org. That's the website that accompanies this podcast. You can go there and see show notes. There's a contact me page. There's where if you want to holler out, reach out to me for anything. If you want to be on the podcast, if you have feedback, I welcome the feedback. I've actually had some thank you. I've had some people touch base with me here lately and give me some feedback, and I really like that. Both directions, positive and negative. One of the things people were saying, the intro was too long early on, so I shortened that up to about 15 to 20 seconds and listened to you all. So I am listening. And if you need any help, I don't know if I can do it, but I will try. If you need some help, I'm certainly a voice or an ear to listen and maybe point you in the right direction. If you're dealing with any kind of recovery issues or any kind of thing like that sounds like maybe if you're driven to maybe drawn to reach out, do so. Finally, TSSR, 12-Step Spiritual Recovery, the book by James Christopher Cohn, is out on Amazon. You can get it there, and it's out on Kindle now. One more time, 12-Step Spiritual Recovery by James Christopher Cohn. Mark, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing good. It's a beautiful day.
Yeah, we finally got some sun. We've had a little bit of rain and this Easter Sunday here. The sun come out, and I was out in the backyard earlier and listening. I can hear kids playing, and it sounds like springtime out there today.
It's coming really quick.
Yeah. So I was saying in the beginning there, that of not knowing you. But hearing who he's talking to, and I joke around because I found this to be a little bit of a funny thing about certain meetings. That particular meeting had a lot of marks, and I'm not sure if it still does because the TSSR meeting has started to come on Thursday night now, and there was always a lot of marks in that meeting. So it's keeping them straight in the beginning, but so I think that's the reason why the little acronyms came on the front ends of the marks about the different ones, so we knew which ones we were talking about.
Never name your child Mark.
Yeah, that's what.
It's a bad omen.
I joke around when I go to that meeting. I'd say, if you don't know people's names, if you just say hi, Mark, you got a high percentage of hitting it right at that meeting. And I know another one that's Brian's, and there's a lot of Brian's at a meeting I go to now. It's kind of funny.
I think there was 8 of us in one room.
Yeah.
We were all sitting together.
Yeah, I'm Mark. Yeah, that is funny, man. The world's a cool place. I truly am excited. I'm inspired by you, period. You're somebody who has a solid feel to you. There's this thing where I walk around, and you get this thing when you hear it. It's just people you like that have what you want kind of stuff, and you see it in people's eyes, and with 100% honesty, I can tell that from the very beginning of meeting you, I've had that feeling that guy of the one that stick with the winners kind of thing. You were a guy who openly told us of the problems you were having. That was something that always, because the people who are just always on top, you got to go. I had to be a little suspect of always being up on the peak of the rainbow, and I always heard both sides from you, and really honest shares, and as I've gotten to know you better, you've touched me. You continue to. Welcome to the table.
It's attraction, not promotion.
Right, exactly.
Right. No, I always try to be a straight shooter.
Yeah, and we can't cuss on here too, so don't worry about that. If we're just regular dudes talking is what the deal is, and I don't want to candy coat this thing at any level. So as I usually do, I start out asking what a guy's sobriety, or a person. It's not always a guy. I'm glad I get some gals on here too. Ask my fellow what his sobriety date is, and we'll just start from there. However this conversation rolls,
Sounds
it will
good.
roll. like we asked in the beginning.
My sobriety date is August 16th, 2006.
August 16th, 2006.
Sometimes it goes fast, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah. So that meant, what's that mean? 13 years coming?
This August, yes.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah. Well, it's been a great road, you know. What can I say about it? My first couple of years were not good. Come out of treatment, wandering around, so to say. Went to the lunch munch in Jeffersonville. And again, attraction, not promotion. And I walked around and I listened, and a lot of people come up and shook my hand, and and that was a really telling moment for me, and I began to think that, whoa, this is cool, and as I began to network, it was again, attraction, not promotion. I began to notice a lot of camaraderie, and people just helping, each other, come in and, hey, how you doing? And yeah,
it's okay.
I'm very thankful.
Fellowship aspect of it immediately struck
absolutely.
me immediately.
Yeah.
My very first meeting, I had a very moving first time in AA. Now I will always have to clarify that it really wasn't the first one. It was I had been court ordered when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But I don't remember any of it. This is the first one I say when I come in with that, which I didn't even know that day. It's all rearview mirror stuff. I come in with that third tradition under my feet of a desire to stop.
Absolutely. And I remember you wearing the bracelet.
Yeah.
And, but your power to get straight was very evident in how you
I was backed in a corner. So truth of the matter, it's like go to prison or get straight, man. And
that's the thing about.
And I didn't want to go to prison.
Yeah, and that's the thing about the program. You see somebody come in that's new, and they kind of sit in the back and don't really know what to think, and then they keep coming back, and their circle gets tighter, and tighter and tighter, and the next thing you know, they're sitting up front. But to see that person get closer, and it's a wonderful thing.
It really is.
It is.
Yeah.
And you see the color come back to their face. You see them laugh.
Yeah.
And they look at other people, and we automatically love them, but they just don't know it.
Yeah.
And when they get it, they get it.
Yeah.
Of course, we've seen a lot of people never come back.
Yep, that's right.
I know one at Northside. I think we've had a couple of suicides.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
And that's an awful thing. That's an awful thing to die of this disease that way. So, and I've had a lot of experience as you well know, going overseas was the pinnacle for me. I did 3 tours in Iraq, 1 in Afghanistan. I first went to
3 in Iraq. Is that what you said?
Yes, sir.
3 in Iraq, and say it one more time.
I had 3 tours in Iraq and 1 tour in Afghanistan.
1 tour. Wow.
So,
well, thank you for that. First, to go with that
I have
too.
to preface this by saying that I was a federal civilian over there with combat troops. So I was assigned.
I have no idea what that means.
Well, I wasn't a combat soldier, so the only difference really is I did not have a weapon.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I was over there setting up satellite networks and doing all the communications for what we call regimental combat teams. So, as my skills progressed, I got drawn into a lot of these combat zones. So, in 2000, that was in 2004. I was still in my disease, but I think it was about the 3rd or 4th month I was there. We were under attack quite a bit, and I kept thinking to myself, what in the heck am I doing here? And the bad thing about being in a combat zone, it is 59 minutes of peace and quiet, 1 minute of terror.
Yeah.
And that really, really affects you. And
because in that 59 or in that 60, you don't know where the 1 minute is going to reside.
And we used to think about that all the time. Going across the street, well, I'm going to get whacked.
Yeah.
I'm going to get killed, and I come close a couple of times, a lot. And, that physical shaking of your body and that physical, well, just plain out being scared, 2004 was a rough time. And in the Green Zone in Baghdad, I was right next to the American Embassy, right next to it. And the thing about the American Embassy overseas is they sell alcohol. And the Iraqis were supplying a lot of the American Embassy with alcohol. And we would kind of intercept them. And they would sell us more alcohol than you can even imagine. I ran into one guy. He sold me a case of Crown Royal for $75.
Whoa. I
was in heaven.
Yeah.
And me and my friends, there was 3 or 4 of us. We drank it in a week, And I was telling myself, if I'm going to get killed, I'm going to go out with a bang. My disease from childhood up until then was pretty progressive. Had parents that are big alcoholics.
Are they?
I come from an Italian family. So,
I always hear when I sit here, I hear these like dings, these bell ringers is what, actually I got that because my kids have some kind of thing called a bell ringer at school.
Right.
And when I hear these same things like, parents alcoholic, I heard you say from the time you was a child,
right. Yeah, we didn't get here on our best behavior.
Yeah.
So, excuse me.
You're fine.
But, so I come back from Iraq, and that was my first tour. I come back in I want to say it was, a lot of it is just a blur now. It's been a while.
Yeah, I joke around and say if I knew I was going to have to retell all this, I'd have kept better notes.
Right.
And I don't too much worry about the exact timeline. I've seen some people really struggle at the podium and trying to get like it was August. It's like nobody really cares too much about exactly what day it was.
And I think it was the summer of 2006, and I came home. Of course, a lot of us came home a different person.
Yeah, changes.
So I, my wife and my family, my 3 kids, kind of stayed away from me. They knew the change. Was kind of going. I bought a brand new truck. Had 200 miles on it, I believe, and rammed it into a tree. But it was right next to my house, so I was able to get it home. And next thing I know, I woke up and it was daytime, but I had passed out on the pavement there. So, it was just a progressive thing. And, did I really have a God moment? And I can't tell you that. My disease went on for another 2 years. I was drinking going to work. I drove from where I lived in Memphis, Indiana, to Fort Knox, and 52 miles one way.
Yeah.
My disease began to get more and more progressive. Before that, I'd buy me a couple things of little bottles, of vodka, and I would drink it on the way home. So, it would, again, that progressed while I was drinking before I went to work. And I knew every liquor store between my house and Fort Knox. So, I had a car that had some good gas mileage. And every time I went over like a bump or railroad tracks, I could hear it clinking.
The bottles?
Yeah. And come 2006, my I went to the doctor, and my liver levels were all off, and they're just up and down, up and down, up and down. And my doctor told me, he said, Mark, you got to stop this. You really have to stop this. And it was, I think my breaking point was, I was out back of my house. I had a bottle of Crown Royal. I'd already drank, I don't know, half a bottle of vodka, so I was torqued big time. And it was pouring down, raining. And I was drinking Crown Royal and then throwing up at the same time.
Yeah.
Then taking another swig. I'd take 4 or 5 swigs. Then I would throw up again. So, and I, excuse me, the next day I told myself, I felt like crap. And that was a Friday, I think. And I was getting ready to lose my job. So all those things that we have in our life are starting to implode on you.
Yeah, starting to
my family,
put pressure on you.
Yeah. I'd walk into my house and my kids would walk, they just go in another room. And I would really wonder why I was alone. That was my selfish and self-centeredness, Even the dog wouldn't talk to me, And
I've heard you say that before.
Yeah. And it was, I said, I got to stop this. But I still didn't think it was a God moment. I really didn't. So it was I really did not know anything about God, to be honest with you, when I walked into treatment. So I went to treatment. I did 30 days.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I did 30 days because, I had some flashbacks from the war, which I still carry with me today, as a matter of fact. And I did the treatment, and I said, okay, I'm good. I'm fixed, I'm good. And then I've been sober for probably, I don't think it was 2 weeks, when you go through that. I'm good, I can go do my job. And,
yeah, I think I got this.
Yeah, I got this, man. So, my family said, you're a different person, even though you're not drinking. You're mean. You're contemptuous. And you need to go to AA. Like, what? I ain't going to no AA. And I'll never forget that when I came home, I always used to drive by the Jeff Token Club in the old space. And it was right there on the right, and I was drive by it. I think it was about a week later. I pulled off in the exit there in Jeff, and I kept circling around it, and I tell this too when I speak. I parked in the back, There was cars were out there, but I went on the back door and I knocked.
Yeah.
Nobody answered, so I
off the hook.
Yeah,
they didn't let me in.
Yeah. There's nobody there, so okay, I'm good. And then I drove out and walked around the back, I guess it is, facing towards the highway, and there was 4 or 5 guys out there, and I drove away, and I come back the next day, and I walked in the room, and Herb was the first one to shake my hand, give me a hug. And, that was a good feeling. So I said, man, I'm going to give this a try, And I got that pink cloud thing. But I, being in the military, I did 17 years in the Army. But then I went, became a federal civilian. So I ended up going, to Iraq. And but one thing that we do is we cherish camaraderie,
right?
Because that's how you get along when you're in a foxhole, and it's you. You're not worried about the war or whatever you're doing. You're worried about that guy next to you, whether he's going to live or going to die. So
it's a little bit like the staying in a moment kind of thing. You're staying with the guy next to you, not worrying about the big picture here, because the big picture is way too much for me to handle.
Stay alive, but it's going to take the guy to your right, and it's going to take the guy to the left.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, so I began to recognize that was the very first thing. So I kept coming back. I kept coming back. And as I went into the meetings, I would go like, I don't know, maybe once or twice a week, because I was still repairing that relationship with my family. One of the first things I did when I got out of treatment is I took my teenage kids, I took them out to lunch separately, and that's one of the things that I'm thankful about treatment is that you need to go and you need to make your amends I had already made my amends to my wife in treatment, but my kids refused to go, so I had to go out and I look them right in the eye, and I said, I'm sorry for what I've done to you. I just said, I got a disease. And I learned that in treatment too. They teach you the dynamics, what it does to your brain,
Yep.
Which I appreciated,
It helped me a lot to have that medical side of it. That was
Yes,
something that
absolutely.
broke through to me.
Yeah, and you have to have that for the knucklehead like I am. I've got to have something concrete to go by.
Right.
So, and my kids said, "Oh, it's okay, Dad. It's okay. But,
We're good.
Yeah, we're good. We're good." And how kids are today, but they always kept an eye on me.
Yeah.
They always kept an eye on me. I have to tell this story about when I first got out of treatment, and I've shared this in the rooms too. My wife didn't say a word when she picked me up. She said, "I hope you feel better," and this and that. And when I pulled up in the driveway, we didn't have any cars there, and there was one blue trash can just sitting there. And she got out and went around the front. So here I am. We usually go in the driveway. There's a door there, and there sat a blue trash can in the sticky that said 141. And when I opened it, that's how many bottles of liquor were in that trash can. Half pints, big ones, small. I thought I was really smart. You would hide them behind the corner, under this,
stash
under
them,
that.
no doubt.
So, I was smarter than them. I was smarter than anybody else. So, but back to what I was saying is that, I began to, enjoy that camaraderie. So my first sponsor, temporary sponsor, he would, we would do the closing. He said, "Don't close your eyes. Don't close your eyes. I want you to look at all these people." And,
Interesting.
Yeah. And that's where I began to say, I think I can do this, and keep coming back.
So do you ever explain that? Or what is your take on it, maybe? Because I see people do that, and I do it too. I will look around, and nobody ever really told me that. Sometimes there was a time when I thought that people were like, when they had their eyes open, they was refusing to pray. They used to be like, I ain't,
But you began to see people that were broken like me. You see it in their face, even though they got their eyes closed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I do. I like to look around at those during that
I
time.
don't do it a lot, but especially the new people. Most of them got their eyes open; they're scared to death, but that's when it started to become attractive to me. So I had an experience because I had all my drunk friends, and we were going to go to a Colts game, and I'd been sober about 3 months, and hadn't seen them in a while. And when we met the morning before the Colts game, took a bus up there, and my favorite was liquor, but I also did a little bit of cocaine and that kind of stuff.
What you got?
Yeah, but my flavor was alcohol.
Yeah.
And it's like 10 o'clock in the morning. They're sitting there in the bus doing piles of cocaine, and they say, "Oh, Mark, glad you're back," and would you like to drink some milk? Yeah. That started my day, and I had a bunch of water. But man, I was I was white knuckling it
I'll
bad.
bet.
Because I had bought these tickets before I went into treatment,
Oh,
and I
really?
wasn't going to let my kids down. My boys,
So they went with you?
Yeah, they went with me. So, but man, I was white knuckling it big time, and I barely remember that game because
Just way up inside your head,
oh
man.
my goodness, yes. Oh my goodness. And my son was of legal age, and he had these big, $12 beers, and he's pounded them down.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, you want one, Dad? No. So, that was I told myself, Mark, you have to get out of this environment that you're in. In order for me to stay sober, you can't go back to what you used to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I say this at the VA treatment center all the time.
Right.
When you get out of treatment, you have to, it's hard. It's hard to do that.
Real hard.
Because everybody's situation is different. And if you want to be successful in any way, shape, or form, that's critical to your. And my temporary sponsor told me that, So.
Yeah, I couldn't. I didn't want to do that.
Yeah,
right.
no.
I didn't know, like with these friends
Absolutely.
of mine, air quote friends of mine, that I didn't think, I felt like I was letting them down.
Yeah.
I didn't have any other friends.
Right.
What am I going to do?
Yep. And they kind of turned on me, which was kind of telling,
Yep.
and making fun of it. And I was weak,
I remember there's still something that echoes in my mind of a guy, told me, and we're somewhat still friends, but I'm not running around with him anymore at any level. He said,
Right.
"Man, Dan, you used to be a lot of fun when you used to drink."
Right.
And which
Right.
the story was I'm not any fun anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
I think I said
Hurt my
something.
feelings.
I think I said something to them to the effect of, again, those are cloudy days for all
Yeah.
of us.
Yeah, and I'm not blaming. It's not a knock on these guys, these people.
Right.
I'm not at no level am I trying to do
Yeah.
that. It's just
Right.
what happened. My experience. What.
I seen one of them a couple of years ago, as a matter of fact. And, hey, how you doing, Mark? You doing okay? Man, you look great. And I was kind of nervous, because ran into him at Lowe's, as a matter of fact. And he said, man, you look great. Are you still sober? I said, oh, yeah. I said, it's a good life. And he just looked at me and he said, I bet. So, he looked at me kind of serious. So I thought to myself, hey, what I'm doing is right.
Yep. As a seed.
Yeah. Again, it's attraction, not promotion. And what else can I say? As I begin to Northside, that was my home group at the time. Still kind of is. I go there every Thursday. And it used to be the brick building, which was, I don't know.
Way out front by the.
Yeah, out front. And used to be like 10 people in there.
Yeah. It's got a high name, but I can't remember what.
Yeah. And then moved over to the main church.
So you were there when it was that, when they were
Yeah,
over in that. I
absolutely.
hear people talk about that.
Yeah. And having a home group is important. And I'll tell anybody out there or anybody here, having a home group, changing your environment and having a home group,
I needed new friends. Like I said, I didn't know what I was going to do.
Yeah.
And that's where
Yeah.
mine came from, was my home groups.
Right. And, a sponsor, of course, you don't know if it's, temporary sponsor or what, because it's hard for us in sobriety, new sobriety especially, to pick somebody.
Yeah.
This is just my view.
Right. Yeah, it is. It's really hard.
Yeah. So I kind of, not that I'm against it, but I just say, wait, find somebody that you think you like, go from there.
I agree that, you should get and I try to be that person when I need to. I got a new fella now, and I
Sure.
said, hey, I'm going to be your temporary sponsor for now, because he
Sure.
doesn't know anything, but
Yeah.
he needs somebody. And I explained to him
Right.
why, here's the deal, and I was out of town all weekend, and I told him to call, gave him some,
Right.
call this guy if you're getting a pension. I was like, that guy said, yeah, man, he called me. I was like, good.
Yeah.
But I've
It's like,
been
cha-ching.
real close to, or I'm real clear in the fact that, I want you to find your sponsor. He's out there someplace. I say a lot of times when I'm behind the podium, I say, I have the best sponsor in the world.
Right.
And if you don't think you do too, keep looking, because he's out there for you someplace.
Right. And that time that I was in that phase of just coming out of sobriety, they asked me to go back to Iraq again in 2007. So, what can I say about that time? I was newly sober, and I wanted to prove to myself that I could go to a combat zone and not drink. And, wow. Another time that it's still fuzzy, but that was some of the most, wow, I still get a little emotional talking about it, because I lost a lot of friends there. But it was at the height of the fighting in 2007. These soldiers would go out, and I'd kind of creep behind them, and as they went into the forward operating bases, the very first thing I did was help set up the communications for the Corps of Engineers and some other units. And, but it was terrible. It was. And I kept telling myself, I'm not going to drink. I'm not going to drink. I'm not going to drink. There were times where I had to take a pillow and just put it over my head. I was definitely white-knuckling it for about 8 months. But when I was on the way back, I said, yeah, I went over there, got shot at, IEDs.
I did it.
Yeah, I did it.
I survived.
And
survived both ways.
Yeah.
Survived, period, morally, and survived your sobriety. Survived.
When I was over there in 2009, I think that was about the time that I met you, right over in there, maybe. And then I went back in 2009. So, I have a computer experience, and they needed that as far as setting up satellite networks. So they kept asking me to come back. They kept asking me. Excuse me. And so 2009 was really pretty easy, because the war was starting to, the last set of troops left there in 2010. And I left right before for the really big drawdown. So it was fairly easy, not a big problem. I was actually able to find some guys in sobriety.
Yeah, very cool.
I was at Talil Air Base, which was the south part of Iraq. So, got to chum up with those guys, and we'd talk about the big book, and
a blessing.
Yeah, it was. It was a blessing. And I got back, and that's when I really started really getting into the fellowship, because I needed that. I needed that to keep me sane.
Yeah.
So, and I found my sponsor, Jersey Joe, we really met, the guys I hang around with, and so things got a lot better. That's when I began to, and again, the spiritual thing wasn't still in my sobriety. And as I kept going, and I remember you talking about how the spiritual thing came into your lives. And to me, it was just, I wasn't against it, but what kept me sober for a lot of years was just hanging around other people and caring about other people. When people would come in and they didn't look so good, come over and ask them. Again, that was a camaraderie thing.
Yeah, right.
And so, what year was that? I think it was 2011. I got asked to go to Afghanistan. I think you were pretty much in the, because everybody say, "Where's Mark? Where's Mark?"
Yeah.
He's in the Middle East.
Yeah.
And, again, that was another easy one. But I would, this time, I was at Kandahar Airfield, which is the southern part of Afghanistan. And there was a coalition forces. You had Australians, you had That's what they call it, a coalition.
Right, yeah.
And they have all these different countries over there. And because it was NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, was there. So Canadians, you name it. And on the other side of the airfield, I found a meeting. And I found it through the church. You know, they got little churches, you know. Most of them are made of wood. But that was an interesting time because here I'm going to meetings and half of them didn't speak English. So it was Italians and Polish.
It was coalition AA.
Yeah. And there was, I don't know, 5 or 6 guys in there. And then it began to get a little bigger. Alcohol was completely banned by then. But there's, you know, just
right.
Yeah,
like drugs are illegal.
Yeah. Just like a black market, they're all around.
Yeah.
You know, and I began to see these people from other countries again. You know, so that was again that camaraderie come into my life.
Yeah,
and that's most of my sobriety, I think. And let's see, I began to get that spiritual experience, but I didn't really know what it was. You know, and I began to see these new people come in and talk about that. And you're one of them, you know. And I could see your commitment to it, how you were changing when you first come in, you know. And I said, wow, attraction, not promotion, right? So I kept getting into my big book, and I would pick and choose what I wanted when the God thing come in.
Yeah.
I gotta skip over that. And you know, I began to work the steps more and more. You know, and it's like, you know, when I got out of treatment, you temporary sponsor, read the big book, you know, go through your steps, and my steps were, or my 4th step was kind of, let me get this done so I can move on to the other ones.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think
just
I ever
to
did
check
this.
the box kind of thing.
Yeah, check the box, exactly. And I did a kind of a pseudo 5th step. You know, I still really wasn't prepared, to be totally honest.
Yeah.
You know, and on to, I believe it was 2000. I got back from Afghanistan in 2012. And 13 and 14, I began to go to, you know, step groups. You know, Don led a bunch of guys, and he had a kind of a place like you got here, and that's when it started. You know, I did some things in my life that I was not proud of, and I think we all have those experiences.
Yep, we do.
And it became more and more. It kept coming up, you know, and I didn't understand. Well, I did understand. I just did not want to admit it.
Yeah.
And well, you know.
Do you think the military background had a thing where, you know, like if you just, it kind of like what the book says, if you just manage well, if you would just try hard enough, if you would just somehow or another that was taught that effort and you really taught, at least it seems, and I'm not military, my brother was, but I've heard some people talk about how that, like, you get driven into this that you know, if you just try hard enough, you can beat anything, right?
Exactly.
And then this one here is one is, you know, that's been trained into you for, did you say 17 years of,
right.
And then plus of the same kind of philosophies. And then now you're handed something that you can't wish away. You can't beat with willpower and.
Right. And I but I would listen to I don't want to say you people, but I would listen to the people that had that. And again, it became more and more relevant. And I began to love the program. I didn't know anybody that drank. So, you know, all these things were closing in on me. And, you know, let's see. This is 2019, right?
This is. Yeah, and then we don't really have to be chronological because I'll probably.
I had a routine, go to 3 or 4 meetings, you know, and I started chairing a lot of meetings, and because I'm in charge, and that was, I guess it was but I was having an effect on new people that were coming in.
Right.
And they saw how happy, joyous, and free, happy and joyous. Yeah. But and this is just recently, I began to think about this. My own taking care of myself was kind of slipping away. But then again, I was, how many meetings I go to.
Yeah.
And because it's starting to become a way of life. And
that all-elusive balance, I'm putting myself out there to help other people. I can do, that's obviously good for us, but there's also, we got to come back home and take care of me too.
And my new sponsor has stressed that to me continuously, because he kind of saw it in my, in my face. And I went to 3 12-step studies in a row, and my last one was, again, there's a lot of things in my life that I truly regret, but I'm not going to let it get me drunk. I can't, I love my life now.
So it sounds like through these step studies, you were maybe peeling back some of that and letting it out to these,
absolutely.
And I like this, personally, I have this little thing I say about, I sometimes do it, and I say it this way. I say, I'm discharging this negative energy to the universe through safe people. I need these safe people around that I can trust with my stuff, man. I'll tear up thinking about it, because it means that much to me that I've got these guys in my life now that I can actually tell them anything and know that they will hold it sacred and protect me with it.
You're absolutely right. And, I did that 5th step, the first time. And then the second time, more started to be revealed, and the third time, it was, like you said, it was very emotional. And that's when it started to become a spiritual experience for me. And of course, I did the same things that I've always done. And, I said, this is cool. And I thought about you a lot, too, because of what? And some of the other, I'll call you guys the juice crew. Yeah, I laugh, but I look at you guys and very impressed by what you guys do, and
we're having a blast.
Yeah, you are. And I have thought about you younger guys, just seeing this new generation, I guess, come in and be so dedicated to it. I've been to that
Tuesday night meeting.
Yeah, I've been there twice, and I'd come out just bopping it. I haven't had a chance to.
Yeah, the energy is just fantastic in there.
I haven't had a chance to be over there lately, so. But let's see. Coming up to I guess 2017, 18, and right now, I've had a lot of things happen in my personal life. I've just I'm separated, getting ready to get divorced. And
that's a rough one.
Yeah, it is, because there was a lot of things in me besides my alcoholism. And when on this journey to sobriety, a lot of things changed about me.
Yep, we do. We transform.
Yeah. And some things on the other side started to stay the same. So, I am very hurt by it, and but I got to move on. The last year, it's been probably the hardest part of my sobriety.
Yeah, I'll bet it is.
Yeah, because like you said, transforming, moving into a new house and making my own bed, paying my own bills, and I've changed more, I think, this year than I ever have. And I'm reaching to a higher power, which I do call God. And I think you heard me, this was extremely powerful for me, back in March, just a couple of months ago. And I can explain it to your audience, but my son-in-law was
Yeah,
killed in
tell
a
it.
very, very terrible,
It's a powerful story.
yeah, very terrible motorcycle accident. And they were really happy, and him and my daughter, and it happened on March the 1st, and I was there the next day, and I actually had the little big book with me, and reading that. But on the plane ride, I was so angry at my son-in-law. How dare you do this? Leave my little baby girl like this.
Yeah.
The rage to me was one of the most powerful things that I've ever. I mean, even when I was in a combat zone, I used to cuss the Iraqis, and but nothing like this. So I got to. My daughter was absolutely stunned. Left her with a ton of debt, which she's still working out. But and I've been to Pueblo, Colorado a lot, and I know some meetings, so I hit one a day, twice a day, and I shared at the Colorado version of a lunch bunch, and
Oh yeah.
yeah,
I guess most places have some kind of thing like that.
yeah, and it was pretty cool. And I raised my hand. That was on a Wednesday, and I could not stop crying. I could not stop crying at all. It began the whole experience, and I sat down, and I was crying after I shared, and I felt somebody's hand on my right knee, and he was patting my knee. I looked over, and this is an older gentleman. Well, he's probably about the same age as me. And we did the closing, and some people came up, and gave me the condolences. But this gentleman turns me around, and he puts his hands on my shoulders, and he said, "Mark, it's going to be okay." And he took his hands and put them on my face.
Really?
Yeah. And he was actually wiping the tears out of my, and I still get emotional about this.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, and he said, "Mark, my son was killed a year ago, and in an accident. I don't know if it was a motorcycle accident or not, but the look on his face, and he was an angel to me."
You're right.
Yeah. I still want to cry when I sit there.
Yeah. I've heard somebody say, God shows up in my life in shoe leather.
Absolutely.
In other people.
Absolutely. And this man, we went out. I was there that whole week. And my daughter was still grieving, but I was grieving too. But I think my sobriety was on the line at that time.
Yeah.
And my selfish and self-centeredness came back, because I was, I think I was more emotional than she was. She was still stunned.
Right, yeah. No.
But I wanted people to be around me to comfort me. And that's I've been thinking about that since I got back. And that's really not the right thing to do, But this gentleman his name is Robert, he saved my life. He really did. And my son-in-law, big Harley rider, of course, he was killed on a motorcycle, going 90 miles an hour, which I'm still angry about. But,
yeah.
And we had a motorcycle rally in honor of my son-in-law. And there's probably, 100, 150 bikes. And see, he was a motorcycle rider just like me.
Yeah.
I'm an old man, so I don't go 90 miles an hour.
Yeah.
I just putter along, And he showed up there, and again he hugged me, kissed me on the side of the cheek, and he said, "Mark, we're brothers." Yeah.
Wow, man.
And and he got on his bike. I didn't have my bike with me, darn it. I wanted to. But
Kind of hard to fly with a bike.
yeah, got to put it in your luggage, right? Especially in an ultra classic. So, and after he kissed me, I started crying. And he turned around and gave me his 31-year coin.
Wow.
And he said, I want you to take this. He said, every time you look at it, think about what me and you have done together.
Yeah. Wow.
Oh.
That's just giving me chills.
Yeah. And at that point, and again, I've been sober almost 13 years, but that's when you heard me share at the, again, that was
Tuesday
a powerful
night,
thing
you
for me
come
to do.
home.
Yeah, when I got home, and that was a powerful thing. I was scared to do it, but it felt good because everybody, I think, could understand where I was coming from.
Yep.
Like you said, you can share in our sobriety. You can share just about anything you want.
Right. Yep.
Except
People
for,
get it, I mean, and
except
you can
for
really
maybe
feel
crimes of, I don't think you want to do that.
Yeah.
But
definitely that night, I don't really know how to explain that, but you could just feel the empathy and the compassion in the room as you shared that night,
right.
And people were glued to you and they were listening and they were, their hearts were like handed out to you as you shared,
right.
and
Right.
that's exactly the power that gets me to where I can walk to tomorrow,
Yeah.
And then also it gives me that thing to where, when I listen to that, I go, man, there's absolutely nothing I can't survive in this. There's absolutely nothing my recovery can't survive as long as I will reach out and let these people help me.
That was one of the most biggest things that I learned is that you can do this without drinking, because the depth of our program and how we share our experience, strength, and hope came to me immediately.
Yeah.
And I could not have done that without you and the 500 guys I know in the program.
Right, yeah. Isn't that amazing? Think like start, and to really know too that that's the depth of it, is having all those people by my back. Right. I'm not going to have to go too deep in my list when I hit the wall. When something does happen and I need people,
absolutely.
I don't have to go too deep, and I've got somebody actually helping me. And I know for a fact that I have that I can rely on.
Right.
That's part of this relying on a higher power is this of this program. A power greater than me. Part of that is this program, and then I know that when I reach out, I'll have guys ready to stick their hands out and catch me, so I don't have to fall.
And that's where it came to me that there is a power greater than myself, and it took all you guys and gals to make me understand that.
Yeah.
And there is a God in my life.
Yeah.
And I love the whole thing.
Yeah.
And
so what I didn't hear was a piece of it about him coming back the next day with something for you, right?
Yeah.
Too. There was also another piece of it that you didn't.
It was like 2 days later, I think so. And when he gave me that coin, I said, Robert, and he said, shh, be quiet. He said, every time you think about this, I want you to look at this coin. He said, we're brothers. And I call him, I was calling him once a week, but I've kind of dropped off from that. But he'll always be, and I always go there, so he'll be somebody that I will love the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And that was a cool thing.
Might touch base with him today.
Yeah, I probably will. I'll call him.
Trying to listen to this.
Yeah, and I'll send him the link.
Yeah.
But he was definitely an angel. And that's me today, I think.
Yeah.
Bunch of stuff I probably left out.
Yeah, and so I'm going to circle back because we started off pretty much in a later part of your life. I think it is important to because that's the other, like, one of the things I found to being on this side of the table is that, like, I get to hear where people talk and like fill in some blanks.
Sure.
Like, when you're at the podium, you don't get to do that, and when you're at the podium, your time is limited. And ours is not necessarily, we can...
Every time I speak, I leave something out.
Yeah, you have to, because you really don't have time.
And
you know,
remember
we've had these big lives.
And you remember them, yeah.
And I've got this core thing of my coming to sobriety, the before and during and after part of it, how they say, what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now.
Yeah.
But other pieces of the story will come in and that's where I think the higher power speaks to me. It just comes whatever happens to be, and almost every time somebody will come up and they will talk to you afterwards and say related to whatever you said, and you're like, okay, now I know why that came out tonight. But one of the things I always like to, there's two things. We have this story about what goes on with us, and how we come to sobriety, how we were, the mess we used to be, and so what we were like before, like childhood stuff.
Yeah.
You got any, does there anything come to mind on things like ways you knew you were different, or the alcoholism coming in, or maybe first kind of episodes of starting to get using alcohol as your relief mechanism, as your medicine?
I come from an Italian family. My dad was in the United States Coast Guard. When we were little, we had a blast. We were 13. My parents had, we call them, the ladder kids. My brother is a year older than me, 1 year, 5 days, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
And then from then on, a year apart. So when my mother got pregnant, pop one kid out, she was pregnant again. So we ended up having 6. Traveled all over the country. But as I began to get, 15, 16, my mother was a terrible alcoholic. She was like the Jekyll and Hyde. My parents, as we grew older, my dad only made so much money, and he had a problem even feeding us. I can remember a can of Spam feeding between 6 kids.
Wow.
So my mom got a job.
Where were you originally from?
I was born in Baltimore, Maryland.
Okay.
I was raised in the Washington D.C. area, and then again, that was our home base, Chesapeake Bay area. But we traveled to San Francisco, Florida, and
places near the ocean, Coast Guard kind of stuff.
Oh yeah. I spent most of my life in the back of a station wagon, looking up at the stars. All
right, so I didn't mean to sidetrack that.
No,
you
that's
talking
okay.
about the having trouble supporting a family. Your dad.
Well, we would see, my dad was always a drinker, but my mother, it was like a Jekyll and Hyde thing. When she would beat us and beat my dad, and she would throw chairs and ashtrays, and she got extremely violent.
Yeah.
And that affected me, of course, as everybody else. But we lived in a place called Pinellas Park, Florida.
Heard of that?
Yeah, and me and my brother, we played football, basketball, baseball, did all sports things, but we saw all of our friends drinking these hot beers, So we found out from one of our friends, man, we can make wine. We can make it.
Make it?
Yeah. Grape juice and pour some yeast in there and some other chemically induced thing. But, in Florida it was hot. So we would go up in our attic and, juice the stuff up, mix it up, and you bought balloons. And if you didn't have balloons, guess what else you used?
Condoms?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Many of them, And we would line the bottles up down the corner of the, not the corner, but there was a 2x4 going all the way down. We'd have 6 or 7 bottles, and my dad found them. And
the balloons would catch the gas. That's what you.
Yeah, right. When they would blow up and then would come back down. When it come back down, they were ready to drink. Of course, it was only like 4 days old.
Yeah,
drinking that nasty stuff, and then that's where we began to get that. How it changes you, and and I think I was 13 or 14. I can't remember. So my dad caught us, and he said, okay, you guys want to drink? I'm going to show you how to drink. Yeah, that's the way he was. And I will never forget this. My brother was 1 year older than me. And a lot of people probably don't remember this, but they had this liquor called 10 High. The nastiest stuff. So he sat us down, probably a table like this, and we're going to drink the whole thing.
Was it? It was like whiskey, liquor.
Yeah. Oh yeah, 10 high. Oh yeah, whiskey. And he said, "I'm gonna show you what it's like to drink." And of course, me and my brother puked our guts out. And I think he had a subliminal message there. Okay, it's nasty. Hopefully you won't do it again. You're going to learn from this.
Yeah, he's like trying to like kind of like a.
Yeah, we learned from, and that's when it started for me, I believe, because of course, you live in Florida. There's pot everywhere. My dad was in the Coast Guard. He would interdict tons of pot. We would see him on the 11 o'clock news, and that's my dad.
Yeah,
So. Yeah, and then that's when the drinking and the drugging came in, 14, 15, 16. And we moved. Here's a thing that we moved to the other side of town. And, of course, my dad could barely feed us. So we got a job as a bartender. And imagine that.
Yeah.
So, he was a type of guy that could get drunk, but maintain his... buzz, or, he'd get a little slurry and he'd pass out. But it was my mother, that was, she was a terror when she drank. And my parents saw us out back smoking pot, or, we used to go to the 7-Eleven and drink, or we used to go in the back because this guy was really cool. We'd open up the back of the door and it was MD 2020.
Yeah.
Bottles of it, so we were shoplifting basically. So, that's when I think my disease took off. I really, I began to
It's another bell ringer thing, that 13, 14, 15-year-old.
Sure.
It seems to be where everybody takes off, and it's the kind of thing that kind of rocks me a little bit. My daughter is 13, my son is 15 right now.
Right. Right.
I'm like got the eye open on them, like, what's going on in there?
I got you. Yeah, and and things got worse and worse for our family. My dad's rule was, you're 18 and you're out of my house. I don't care what you do, get out. And he was never really a positive influence, because my parents came from the Washington D.C. area. My grandfather was in World War II, and their emphasis wasn't on education or anything like that. It was on the closeness of the family. And, of course, that was just my experience. A lot of other families, they stressed education, they stressed those things. And I think my last year of high school, I was in the 11th grade, and I just stopped going. And there was... they kicked me out of high school, and I had no repercussions from my parents.
Yeah.
It's okay. You got to go out and get a job.
Yeah.
So I was washing dishes, and
so if I had you said it's my last year of high school, and he says 11th grade, and I'm like, that don't add up for a minute, And then, that was your last year of high school. It was my last year, anyway.
Yeah. And it was those things. That was the beginning of the open campus, theory of high school.
Yeah. I grew up in that, where we were free to do whatever we wanted.
Right.
It's crazy. And, it's like today, I'm like, really? You give me all that freedom, what am I going to do with that?
Exactly. And I just sat in the parking lot and smoked pot.
Same thing here. We'd ride around town, and park in these little alleys, and I knew my town inside and out, and you could go sit at the little basketball courts or something, and play gin rummy in the front seat of a car and smoke dope until the next class.
Yeah, and not long after that, I said, I got to get away from this family. I want to be an upstanding guy. And
I'll prove to the world.
Yeah, exactly right. And so I joined the Army. That was 1976, so I'm giving away my age big time.
Well, none of us are too good at math.
I was a really good soldier when I was in basic training. I ironed my uniform and spit shined my boots.
Yeah, more bell ringers, because we really are that way.
Said,
we're driven to.
I can improve myself like this. Improve my character, my my will, and try to do things right. And I I got to a place called Fort Hood, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as I got there, I was shocked. Because people used to make fun of me, these soldiers. Like, look at him, man, he's got his stuff all squared away, my socks rolled, just like I was in basic training. And these guys, most of them were just coming out of Vietnam. They were just, if anybody out there knows what a combat patch is, I'm sure there is. Mostly all of them were coming back from Vietnam. They could have cared less about the Army. They're just waiting their time to get out. So my my professionalism went out the door pretty quick, because I remember those days when I was a teenager. So that behavior just went out the door, being a soldier was a great time. I traveled a lot and went to Germany, and that was the height of the Cold War. I would go to Germany, and there's the red Huns of the Soviet. So I got to do a lot of work on the East-West German border. I did many tours out there. There was a lot of experiences, good experiences, where a Polish soldier was sitting on the line, and we were trying to get him to come over. Come on! You can be free. But we were drinking like fools. Because again, we did not, just like I had in Iraq, we didn't know when they were coming over because we would have been annihilated. Only about 120 guys against 4,000 over there.
Yeah, wow.
All their vehicles were right over the hill. You could hear them. You could hear them starting up their armored vehicles, and we're like, holy crap, here they come. So that goes to the 59 minutes of and 1 minute of terror, And
of course, that's a great place to be drinking too.
Oh my goodness! Oh yes, and some of the best beer in the world.
Right? Yeah, I've been to Germany. My brother was stationed in Germany, and I got to spend a couple weeks over there. Yeah. But it was a blast.
Yeah, I was in Schweinfurt, Germany, and but we would move up to a town called Coburg. And that's right. 10 kilometers from the outside of the city, there was a border. So, yeah. So, drinking was one of our pastimes. When we weren't patrolling, we were drinking. I was newly married.
Golly, who doesn't drink when they're in the military, though, right?
Mm-hmm. It's a culture. You're rough and tumble, and you're hardcore.
When you have the downtime, it's time to really let loose, and
my first 3 or 4 years, I hated beer. It's like I could barely stomach it. But you get used to it.
Yeah.
And again, my disease got worse and worse. So it took a long time. I think I've spoke before where my disease was a little rock, and it was on a snowy hill, and how that rock got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, because it ended up being a big boulder type snowball.
Yeah, by the time it caught up with you.
Yeah.
I have the same story. I frankly managed pretty well for a lot of years, and I had a lot of fun. Really, it wasn't. There's a lot of good times back there.
Yeah.
They said it was a lot of fun until it wasn't anymore, and when it wasn't any fun anymore, it stopped abruptly.
And in Europe and Germany, the best concerts ever. I seen Queen, Led Zeppelin. Rush. My God, I bet I went to 100 concerts over there.
Yeah, no doubt that had to been fun.
Oh yeah,
I was a big concert lover,
and they were small venues. Maybe 200 people. And it was really the best time of my life. I think. As far as having fun and going places, France, Italy, Belgium, went all over the place. So. I had fun, but then again, my disease was right behind me.
Yeah.
Right behind me, coming up to me. So, I got out of the Army in 1992. That's why I said I did 17. I didn't do the full 20 because Clinton, right after the first Gulf War, was trying to downsize. Well, he didn't try. He did. So they gave us a big severance package,
Yeah.
And, I got out of the military and I was like, man, I do not know what to do. I was a tanker. I was on tanks, a combat position. And, but I got out, and I think, looking back at it, that's where it started to get a hold of me because I was scared. I didn't know what to do, with myself. And,
Probably had lost that discipline that you
absolutely.
had in your life, that like you
Absolutely.
knew what you were doing. They
Yeah.
were telling you what to do. That
Absolutely.
I've heard a lot of people say that disciplined life worked really well for them because they like that being okay. Be here, be there,
Yep.
be here, be
So
there.
people kinda-
When you had your downtime, you knew what those windows were
Yep.
too. So
Here's what
okay,
you
now
do.
I can turn loose
Right.
and do what I want to for these
Right.
windows, and I got to be back by such and such a time. And
Yeah. And, I was at the pillar of my career. I was teaching, Fort Knox is the armor school, of course. And I was teaching long-range gunnery, so we had a lot of people looking up to us. We taught a lot of people from different countries. And I was
my brother was at Fort Knox in basic, like in the early 90s, like 91, 91, something
Yeah.
like that.
And we were, I was proud of myself. I got, and again, my disease was right behind me, and I got out. And like I said, I didn't know what to do, so I kind of messed around for a little bit.
Were you single? Did you?
Yes. I got divorced from my first wife
did you?
in '92, but I had my two wonderful children. And again, I didn't know what to do, but I was driving a delivery truck, and like I said, I could be functional at that time. And I got this big idea: is man, you're a veteran, why don't you go to school? And so I went to school for computer science, and right up here at Ivy Tech.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I hit the market just right.
Right, yeah.
Right when in 2000, Y2K, the world was going to blow up. Everything, electricity, everything was going to go. And
The computers didn't know how to turn to 2000.
I know. Yep.
Nothing knew how to do it.
Yep.
It's going to be
Yep.
catastrophe.
Right, and man, if you could open up a PDF file, you were hired. So that's kind of, And but I ended up working for the Census Bureau in Jeff.
Yeah.
And that kind of started out my federal life, And they put out this big message and saying, we need computer people in Iraq. And out of 25 of us, again, I wanted to stand up and make myself better.
Yeah.
Mark's hand went up, And
Well, you were a veteran already.
Yeah.
So, you knew the culture.
Yep.
And then if you had this other new skill set.
yeah. And I got out so quickly because it spun my head. I was this big important guy in the military. Now I'm out driving a delivery truck.
Yeah.
So, and then I worked with the Census Bureau, and I wasn't done serving. A lot of people went over there for the money. As a federal civilian, I made okay money, but not as much as the contractors. But I got to wear the uniform. That was the most important thing to me.
Interesting.
I got to be with soldiers. I got to, really camaraderie. Here's where that comes in again. And but I absolutely loved it until I started getting shot at.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And the Marines, the Army, the Navy, Marines, Air Force, I loved them all, and our money in the government was somewhat better, but like I said, it wasn't like I went over there to be rich.
Yeah.
Sorry, but I kept wanting to go back, and then that, the first time and the second time. Second time I wasn't drinking, but that first time was bad.
Yeah. So that kind of gets us caught up to where you went into when your tours.
Right.
I do remember one story, though. I remember And I've tried not to. I don't want to let the cat out of the bag on the microphone because I would like to hear you say is talking about meeting somebody while you were over there once. I think you met your son, didn't you, while you were?
Yes, in Afghanistan. Yeah, but this was in 2012. Yeah, I can relate.
Because when I say I like to, we know our little story about around our coming to recovery and the AA days, and and actually like you talked about, I think you did a great job. I liked how you said that, because like we say in that sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly thing about how your evolution of recovery happened and how you really did a great job at like showing how that didn't come quickly for you, but
no, it didn't.
But you landed on the recovery of the fellowship and the camaraderie and the being part of, and eventually come to you that that grew. Because just like me, you were. That's a product to keep coming back, right?
Sure.
Keep trying, keep doing it,
and
you keep on hanging around, and we grow just by proxy of hanging around.
Sure.
If I don't hang around, I don't get any of that.
Right.
So we talked about that, and we go back and we look at our childhood and how we were raised, and what are the things that made us who we are, and then like there's other part that I always want to make sure we touch on because people have these amazing things happen in your life, and you've already touched on a couple of those, but I was touched about the story about meeting up with your son in Afghanistan. And
that was it was. Of course, I went in Kandahar Airfield, and before I transferred over, or we call it deployed over. My son was at Fort Bragg, and he knew I was going, and he used to tell me, "Old man, you need to quit going over there. Everybody hates it when you go over. Everybody my kids call me old man. I hate that. Well, because I am, and that was the fourth tour I was gonna do there." And I said, I promised it was the last one. Last one. Well, that's what you said the first time and second time and third time. And I said, I'm going. I'm not done serving. So he was stationed at Fort Bragg, and so he ended up volunteering to go. And he told me, he said, I'm not going to let you sit over there by yourself. Of course, he was an MP, so he was on the other side of the country. I was in the southern part of Afghanistan. It was okay for me because we had a couple of attacks. I was used to it, so it didn't really affect me that much. And Kandahar's a really huge place. And
water,
please. Please. Yeah, there you go. Thank you. And he was traveling from the western part of Afghanistan, and he happened to go through Kandahar. And, we met up, and it's really unusual to see, a dad and a son in the combat zone. And, he, one of the first things he asked me, he said, are you still sober? Yeah. He looked me dead in the eye. And I looked down. He said, look at me. To have my son tell me this, it was, that was quite a growing moment for me, because I think he did. All my kids respected the fact that I was sober, because I came back to being their dad. But, as soon as he left the gate, I think it was maybe 2 days later, he was in an IED attack, and his driver got both his legs blown off.
Ooh.
And, thank God, whom I call God now, wasn't a scratch on my son.
Wow.
Not physically. Anyways.
Same vehicle.
Yeah. So he came back to Kandahar, and I guess they were replacing his vehicle. My thoughts of it my memories of it may be different than his.
Mm-hmm.
But he had that 1,000-yard stare.
Yeah.
We call it, and it changed him forever. And just like my experiences did, it changed me.
Yeah.
So, it was, that was, again, one of the things that he was worried about, my sobriety. And I said, God, my kids love this. And me, too. You know? So.
Yeah, you don't, You can kind of take that for granted at times until that shows up for you like that. That when you get that, I have that same kind of. My kids have eyes on me, right?
Oh,
they're looking still,
goodness,
and I celebrated just 4 years not long ago, but I still see at times, especially if I'm a little wonky. When like as another thing I heard you say, for a while we fight for our sobriety, right? We're working on recovering to stay sober. And then it seems like if we turn the page or whatever, and like we're then it's more of like maintaining our serenity. It's not so hard to stay sober anymore. I mean, it's not that that I'm immune at any level, but then it becomes this other thing of like where we're growing to just stay cool, to stay serene, to have that peace of mind that we're after.
Well, you can, just like we always say, good thing about drinking is you get your feelings back.
Yeah.
Bad thing about drinking is you get your feelings back.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
You joke around now and again about tour duty in Detroit after that rivaled.
I got back from Afghanistan, and there was no position for me there, and so I had to transfer. I was a geographic bachelor, but I lived in a little basement, in this old castle type in the northern part of Detroit. Was all the old GM guys and Ford guys and all these big mansions.
From all the automobile stuff. I wonder how that happened in Detroit. I wonder why that blew up in Detroit, why that was the capital, the Motown.
It's a sad story. It really is a sad story, how that town. If anybody's going to be listening for Detroit, I love Detroit.
Yeah.
But
it was such a heyday. It had such its high point there at some point, and then now.
And anybody that's from there understands that, but it's starting to come back slowly but surely. And
the AA convention is in Detroit next time around, to 2020 next year.
Next year, you're right.
On Fives.
Yeah, I would definitely like to attend.
Yeah, we're planning on going.
Yeah, they say 40,000 people saying the Serenity Prayer.
Yeah,
all at once is very powerful.
Yeah,
so, I would like to go see some old friends there. So.
And then you ended up having something, and I don't remember, but I remember there was some story you told about Detroit about another, I don't know. I call them miracles is what I call them. I mean, it's probably maybe a stretch. It's not my life. Things that happen for me that I go, wow.
Oh, wow.
That is, how's that happen? These cool things, like you see bumping into your son over in however many thousands of miles that is away from here.
8,000 miles away.
Yeah. How do those things happen?
Yeah. And
the thing with the guy in Pueblo, these people walk into your lives that you.
Yeah. And in Detroit is one of the, and I hate to use the word disciple, but it's the only thing I can think of at the time. But one of Bill's people that he was around was from Detroit, and he started this group in this church, and that meeting has been there for like 60 years, 70 years, and the way they do it in Detroit, not like us. There's a bunch of tables, and everybody gets in the single table, but every table has a different little meeting.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So that when
like small groups.
When they stop, they always do the, Serenity Prayer and all what we do now. But then you hear this deafening because everybody's talking at the same time.
Yeah.
So that was unique.
Yeah, it's a little tough.
But that forced.
Because we have a reverence, like the crosstalk, it's your turn, and it's kind of something that actually works. It works out real well in these little things like this too, because we all respect one another's voice.
And after I kept going there, everybody had to speak, whether there be 4 people on the table or 6. Everybody was required to speak.
Participation was mandatory.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I began to like that. So then I come back here to, Southern Indiana, where I belong. So
well, I have had one of the miracles I have in my life is this retreat that I host out at my place in the country. I've been there this weekend. That's part of why I was down there this weekend, was to prepare for this next month. And I make participation mandatory. I said, if you're coming out here, you got to share. You got to. It's not this.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, and and we're in a tight knit group, and we're not in an AA meeting. It's a men's retreat, a men's recovery retreat is what it is. So if you show up, I'm not going to let you sit over there. And that's really what it is in my heart. I'm not going to allow you to sit over there and not get to be a part of us. I am going to pull you into here. And you can resist and you can run afterwards, but while you're here, I'm going to pull you in the middle of this.
I'm really proud of you. Since you came into the program.
Well, thank you, man.
I know you went back out.
Yep.
And
I had to dance for a while. Same thing. Says here time and time again. Yeah.
Whether that was
the consequences got ratcheted up to a point that I got backed into a corner where I just could not fathom going to prison, and I saw no other way out. And this hand was handed out here, going, "Here's a way out." Yeah. Now I didn't believe it, but I didn't see any other doors.
and I didn't have the consequences, which sometimes I wish I would have had those, because that would have made me, I think, more into a spiritual person, which has taken me some years to get here. And I still got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, that did force me my hand there too, because at times there was no, just like the book says, there was no human power that was able to help me in these things, and nobody could really save me in these certain circumstances. And I just had to rely on this thing we talk about, this power, and said, okay, this is really where you're going to, because I can't do anything for you in this case. My sponsor, my support group, they were all there for me, but they said, about the only thing we can do is pray for you, buddy.
You were a totally different person when you came back.
Yeah.
And I see these guys that have come into the rooms who are absolutely serious about their recovery.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how many, it's 8, 9, 10 of you. I call them the juice crew. So I'm so proud of all of you, because I can see it in your eyes. And you make a hell of a difference.
Yeah, we got a good group of people who are really changing, and I like to see the age too. Guys in their 20s. Because I couldn't hear this in my 20s. No way could I hear this message in my 20s. I was still managing things.
That's what I see now, is some of these younger people, and I think to myself, God, I wish I would have had that.
Yeah.
When I was their age.
Yeah, and that's the thing I keep telling them, because a couple of them don't have much consequences, and I think you don't have to. You understand what a blessing this is, that you didn't have to go where some of us had to go, you know?
Right.
And you get to have these tools now in your 20s, and the world is your oyster now, You can walk and have as good as my parents were, and they really were. They were great people. Mm-hmm. I didn't get any operating guidelines on how to walk, how to go. There was and this set of principles works for me. It just works for me to be able to move down a path. And some people get a little crazy on my one day at a time living and different things like that. What are you doing next weekend? I ain't sure. I haven't thought out that far yet.
And as well as I do, some people have gone that group have gone back out.
Yep.
And they were refunded their misery.
Yeah.
And they came right back. And that's okay.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I'm not gonna, back in the day, but
I get a little hurt. There's a little bit, and I know that today, like when I see people go back out and come back, I used to have a little bit of a problem with that. I thought, there was something like, I had a little bit of a holier than thou a little bit going on where I didn't, and I don't think it was real bad, but there was also, but I think at the root of that was like a hurt almost, that I saw people go out, and that does. And when I see people go back out to that living, there's two things going on. It tells me that I could do it too, so that scares me a little bit. When I see people go out, it's like a and then and I'm actually hurt that. It was this funny little accountability thing I have with AA and recovery today, that I owe something back to this to stay sober today. This accountability to my brothers and stuff, that I owe it to them.
That's
to stay side by side. It's kind of like that foxhole brotherhood. We're here together, man. Don't let me down, because I'm relying on you to stay here too.
I was just going to that. Is that there is accountability to a group of my people who are Becky, our little crew there, and we text all the time if we're not going to make it to the meeting. Hey, I won't be there.
Yeah,
that's an accountability thing, and I owe it to them because we're friends. But my sobriety is more important, because I'll be darned if they don't call me if I'm, hey, what's up?
Yeah,
and that's a good.
And they get to know you, and you can't pull bullshit on them. You walk up and they go, marks them up, and I'm all right. And you're like, no, you can't throw that at me, man. I know you by now, man. What's going on?
And that's cool. It is that and as you know, and I'll go into kind of what I'm doing right now is
Cool, because that's exactly where I was getting ready to take it.
yeah. I'm a veteran, so about 3 years ago I ran into Angela. I'm sure you remember her. Mm-hmm. She comes every once in a while, but she works for the VA, and so I've gotten into helping these guys out at the Veterans Treatment Center. And it is so frustrating.
Yeah.
I think I said this earlier about changing, what you have, your current environment. And it goes back to when I was in treatment.
Yeah.
And, but a lot of these guys have some really, really extensive issues. Been going there for 3 years. I don't think I've had one guy actually that I know has been in the program. Now they may go out and have that seed planted, which is what my sponsor told me. Mark, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
They're gonna get it when they get it. We've had a couple of them in their lives. 21 veterans die.
Yeah.
Every day from PTSD related issues or drug and alcohol. And one of the things that I learned in 2004 when I came back, is they give you, hey, you got PTSD. Well, I can't sleep. Okay, you got PTSD. Here's these drugs. And, of course, that's changed over the years. But if you have those symptoms of PTSD, but you cloud it with drugs and alcohol, that makes things all the worse.
Yeah.
Yeah, and of course we have gotten away from the war, so things are a different. So I try to tell them all the time that get in here, stop drinking and doing drugs, and seek the counseling that you need, for your PTSD issues. So, again, it's frustrating, but I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
I love it, giving back, 6:30 every Sunday. I bring a dozen donuts, and, most of them in treatment are looking around the corner. Hey, donut man, what's up?
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, man, you get to touch some lives like that.
Yeah, and I'm not trained, but a couple of the counselors have come up to me and said, Mark, you're making a hell of a difference.
Right, yeah.
And he said, a lot of them talk about you all week. And that in itself is, whether they go out there and do drugs or not, is, I just got to, I'm going to
It's a giving back, it's that exact same thing, coming back.
Yeah.
And the results that's not our part of it. Our part is the action.
Right.
And
my sponsor keeps slapping me on the back of the head, and, because in a lot of ways I'm an emotional wreck. But I'm okay, I keep getting reined in by the program, and because, AA is a part of my life, and it saves me, in a lot of ways.
Yeah, you did a little hand motion like that. That's what one of my other little things is like. I keep on getting the course correction. As I start going this way, then I get to get my compass needle back in alignment, and my family, my friends help me do that. I can't do that on my own.
Because we're human. We're human, and especially the last things I've shared here is, the last 3 or 4 months is I went through divorce and, we're separated, but fighting those issues.
Mm-hmm. Nothing crushed me like a divorce. No, I was still, it helped me it helped me find that last bottom. Really was a divorce, because I went back out and I went back out with a vengeance, because I had a reason,
that's
right?
Right. Now that I think
I had,
about it, you're right.
God damn it, if you had this happen to you, you'd drink too. I had no tools at that point. I hadn't gotten to where I am today, because I hadn't totally hadn't totally found that solution yet. Sure. I just was toying with it.
And my son-in-law dying, but then having this spiritual experience where I was so down, and then Robert just brought me up.
Yep.
And man, that wasn't a deal breaker. That was a deal sealer for me. So I've definitely changed over that, and I'm just happy in sobriety.
Our teacher training thing, this yoga teacher training thing that I just went through, at the end of the last thing they did we watched a movie, and I thought, of course, when I always like sit down. I'm not really a movie TV guy at all. I don't really watch any kind of that, hardly at all. But they sit down and I'm like, man, am I going to be able to stay? We've been doing yoga all day long, and then pop it at 6 o'clock. They're going to want to watch a movie.
I see you on Facebook doing that.
I'm going to be lights out, man. I'm going to be tired. But they did this thing, and it was about Joseph Campbell and the whole story around the hero's journey is what he says. He calls it, and it's this thing that a lot of us I see we go through, regardless, and we go through it many different times. We go through a part of our life that kind of goes pretty smooth sailing, and when we run into some bump in the road, right. And then hopefully, that we recover from that, and when we go on to be able to help somebody else, generally, that's really where the hero's journey comes full circle, and we will do that loop throughout our lives. Most of us will in a number of ways, whether if it's doing like you're doing with the PTSD and the being able to give back and be a stable thing in somebody's life.
And
when you go through these things, like
I just care.
That's what's in your heart.
Care. And
it's the compassion, the empathy, that's one of the things that, like, when I've heard that, we just didn't have, the one thing that the drugs and alcohol and that kind of lifestyle took from us was empathy. We didn't have an empathy we didn't have any sympathy for our fellow humans. We couldn't really relate. Now we get those feelings back.
Right.
And now I can have a feeling for you too.
Yeah, for my, and I say this all the time. It's common decency and respect.
It really is.
And when I open the door for somebody at the store, and they look at me and say thank you. Yeah. And I just made that person feel better. Yeah. Helping a senior citizen with their bags, or that kind of thing. I never cared about that. And it's a good thing. And
I get to walk through life today being a positive influence most places I go.
Yeah. It's not so much Alcoholics Anonymous. It's
like I said, at the grocery store, to whatever, and I notice that time after time, I keep on having these little things where I'm walking along and I run into some other, one of God's children trying to do their thing today, and I can see the stress on their life, and we come in like an intersection at the grocery store or whatever, and you can see like a little bit of frustration, and I light up my smile, man. Yeah, and I smile at them and wave them on.
Yeah.
And you'll see, and the people they'll watch, you'll get that flicker of a smile from that person where it went from this place where they were just like mission oriented, wherever they were at, to look up and like, damn, there's somebody, and the smile will light up, and I get to have that little piece of that. Yeah. Like I said, get to walk through life today. Most of my life I spent, I've said this before too, I didn't know it, I couldn't admit to this, but most of my life I've spent, if you were in contact with me, I was a negative influence on you. And now today it's actually the opposite. Most times than not, I get to be in a positive influence as I walk around and do my thing today.
And I see people sometimes that are just mean. And I look at them and just, you don't have what I have. Yeah. You don't have this, you don't have this recovery thing or non-alcoholic life.
Yeah. Yep. And even those out there that are not necessarily suffering from chemical addictions or anything of that nature, some people are just flat out suffering from misery. Yeah. They just have that low spot. They just cannot get any traction in life, and these 12 steps have allowed me to do that.
Absolutely. And I'm doing the steps over and over again, and so I help. My sponsor says I help a lot of people, but Mark, you need to help yourself. And helping those people has gotten me away from helping myself. Yeah. So, we're going through the fourth and fifth, and of course, first three are action steps. I'm good on those. I am an alcoholic. I will always be an alcoholic until my dying days. Yep. But so me and him are doing some spiritual maintenance, and it's pointed at me. So,
well, my lineage teaches me this is not. When Bill said, and everyone says, continue to take personal inventory, even though that's grounded around a 10th step. It's also a bigger thing. It means continue to do this thing. Continue.
I forgot about that word.
It doesn't mean I get to do. And there's some people around that that do the steps, and that's but I think, like you said, I listened to what when you were sitting here telling the story, and that's one of the, I like, you heard the thing, collateral damage.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I get collateral benefit today in my life. And
Yeah.
so like when I sit across the table from somebody and listen, I get to know you better, right? So today I've learned that I get to, and that's something I want to do, is build connection with these other humans on this planet.
Right.
Something I was never be able to do. And also I hear the lessons in there. I can listen with an open mind today and hear you talk about peeling back that onion, and the continual repetition through the steps in different ways has allowed you to continue to improve and continue to grow. Another thing I stole from some speakers said, continue to improve my life in recovery. Continue to do the things that improve my life in recovery. And that's continue to do these steps.
I have seen that in you since you come back the second time. Yeah, you have a totally different outlook. And I'm lucky I stayed sober.
Yeah.
Lord have mercy.
Yeah.
I'm so lucky.
Absolutely.
And
because that's a lot of stuff, man. That's a lot of heavy things that'll take a lot of people down, what you just shared today.
I white-knuckled it for many times. And I say this, I could not have done this without people like you and everybody around me.
Right. My tribe.
Yeah. Even when I'm away, I call them or go to, I got this little app on my phone, walk into meetings. Hey, how you doing? And they're just the nicest people.
Yeah. No matter where you go.
Yep, no matter where you go.
And I always have my anchor here.
Yep. So that's my story, I think.
See, that's what's so cool, and that's another thing about like here is like people like get like say we did this in some sharing, and are you complete? When we talk to people, and I mean, that's not to say complete, but I mean, like in the session, are you complete with your thing? And I hear people get, which we don't get to do at a podium. Most of the time, people feel like they're like turning the ignition off at the podium, where it's like, okay, got to turn off, flip the light switch because I'm out of time.
5 minutes.
But here we actually get to where I hear you kind of go, I think that's it. And that's cool. Yeah, and I know we don't necessarily, there's no way to sit here and do everything in a couple hours.
Every time I walk away from speaking, it's like, damn, I should have said this or I should have said that.
Yeah.
To help complete my message. And
yeah,
this is cool. I really enjoy it.
Without a time limit and just be able to just do it. And
people are going to get tired of us listening to this. 2 hours? What's wrong?
I don't think so. And that's not the feedback I'm getting. I'm hearing people say, because also they pause it. It doesn't mean they have to bite off the 2 hours at once, man. You stop the podcast and you come back tomorrow or whatever. And it takes some people some days to listen to them sometimes. And
I wish everybody out there the best of luck, Just keep coming back, keep coming back, keep coming back. To me, I don't care if it's God or not, and I don't mean that in a bad way. Whatever it does to keep you sober.
Yeah.
Whether it's calling somebody, whether it's coming to a meeting, it's like I shared earlier. You see these guys and gals sitting in the back, and then they come closer and closer and closer.
I love the guy that comes in and says, I remember a guy came into the Seekers meeting back when it was still on Wednesdays, and he come in and he said, I don't know if I'm an alcoholic or not.
Right.
And at that point in time, I really didn't know as much as I know today, but to hear that now, like, yeah, cool, good.
Yeah.
Let's hang around for a little bit and let's see.
Yeah. Or go out there and get some more misery.
Right. Yeah. We got tests we can run,
We will refund your misery.
Yeah. But I like that Joey comes in because like a lot of times if a guy come in and it's his first meeting and he'll say, I'm an alcoholic, and we know like, you probably really don't believe that yet,
I think you said that a couple of times.
I come in saying I was alcoholic. I remember, Joe and Becky were the first two people I met, shook hands with, and because they said it to me, if they'd have said, hi, I'm Joe, I'm a parrot, I'd probably said, hi, I'm Dan, I'm a parrot. Whatever they were saying, I was going to say, and I didn't know what being an alcoholic means, like I know what being an alcoholic means today.
Yeah, but I'm glad you asked me. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. I enjoyed having you here, man.
And again, what you and the Juice Crew are doing is really an inspiration to me.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
And
getting to touch a lot of people.
Yeah, and I have seen you guys grow, and a couple of them step back a couple of times,
but
they keep coming back.
Yeah.
That's what I tell anybody out there. Lord have mercy, just keep coming back.
Yeah, man, and that's the other thing, and I've heard this again. None of this stuff is mine. As I said, thank you for making it easy to come back. Because, man, if I have to come back next time, man, I'm going to need it to be easy. It's fucking hard.
We don't have any damn prerequisites. You Don, I can just say his name. Don was a classic example.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And he immediately, he was he thought he was ashamed, and he texted me a couple of times because I was there right when he got sober. And I said, brother, no shame in this. Yep. None.
Come back.
Yeah. Yep. I know, and I'll share this one story and I'll be done. Yep. And a guy named Donnie, Donnie B.
Yep.
That man must have had 50 white chips.
Yeah.
But he was one of the most honest, loving, knew the big book like the back of his hand. And he was a wonderful, wonderful guy. I still think about him and I want to cry. And but he was, he'd been doing it for 50 years. Yeah. Must have been. And probably a little less than that. But, he was a wonderful man. And I hated to see him pass.
Yeah.
He did die sober, but his drinking and drugging caught up with him. And I just think about him a lot.
Yep.
So.
I remember him well. A lot of people have touched me, and I can think of quite a few. That's a thing is that I never knew death like I knew death until I come in this program and started to get to know people and see people dying in here. Joe B was one of the guys that he was a veteran, had one arm.
Yeah.
He made an impact on me immediately for whatever reason. Who knows why that stuff is. And it was just I don't know. I was less than a month sober, man, and he drank and put a gun to his head. And it rocked me, man.
Yeah. And it
what?
scares you a little bit.
Yeah.
Is that going to happen to me?
Yeah. And a little bit like, what's the use?
Yeah.
Right. Might as well keep on drinking. What's the use to even try this thing if that's what the outcome?
And you think to yourself, I'm gonna be a drunk. I'm gonna be a drunk the rest of my life.
Just resign to it.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. But cool, man. We are at an hour and 45 minutes. Yeah. And so that's actually perfect. And that's what I like. I do like to keep these things under the 2-hour mark. This is pretty typical. It's someplace from an hour and 30, hour and 45, something like that is usually what it takes for somebody to sit here and we have this conversation. I think it's a good piece of time and it works well. Appreciate you being here. I'll do those commercials one more time in case people forgot. Listen to Darren Frank. He's got the music around this thing. That's who we're using. Hey, and if you're out there in recovery and you play music, man, that's another thing. Let's get you on here. I'll put your music on the front of this and give you credit. We'll get you some exposure here. TSSR, 12-Step Spiritual Recovery, the book, James Christopher Cohn is on Amazon. You can also get it on Kindle. You can get both at a reduced price. If you already have the hard copy, when you buy the Kindle, you'll get a credit back on your Kindle account too for owning the hard copy. And spiritualunderground.org. Show notes, the pictures of the folks on the podcast, and we'll go outside here in a minute, probably in this nice sun, and get a picture of Mark and I. Most of the time you see the shop in the background, which is cool too. But check us out, and thank you all for listening. The listenership just keeps on growing, and I'm touched to have this opportunity to participate in my recovery in this manner. Bye, y'all. Peace out.
Just who they wanted. Always tried to do everything they said. Only did the things they would approve of. Lock away all your dreams inside your head. Year after year you try to be a good girl. They never failed to point out when you were bad. stuck to the program like a robot. Became a trophy for mom and dad.